Okay, in this final video for exercise 4 on output files and formats, we're going to learn how to import our finished model into the Augment server and also how to import our tracking image and link them together to make them ready for scanning. So, the first thing we need to do to make that possible, obviously have your Augment site up, so that's augment.com, and then you want to make sure that you go to their login menu and log into the system. Now, keep in mind that as a student you have access to their free education license, so make sure that you have signed up with them first with a free account, and that you have also gone after that to industries and gone to education programs and then gone and filled out the information under the Get Free Academic License. That will upgrade your account to a student education license, which gives you more tools and access to more things for up to a year for free. So excellent opportunity to work with this kind of emerging technology. So let's move on from here though. Assuming that you already have all of that taken care of, we can move into the Augment system and start uploading. So when you have multiple files inside of Augment, it does require that they be uploaded as a zipped file, so they have to all be together. That way it reads them correctly. Now, your viewer may not look like mine because I've uploaded many different models over time inside here. You may have just this simple box, this first one that says Add Model. This is always the screen that opens first when you first log into your account. So we're going to start by doing that, but I'm going to go back to my Finder window and make sure that my file is ready for uploading. So I need to make sure that I put my model and the proper textures together in order to upload into the system. Now remember, only put the files together that Blender exported. And remember, when Blender exports your model and you have textures and everything copied with it, it is important that those same textures that Blender made from the export are zipped together with your model. Now I put them all in the same folder, which was not something you should do. You should put them into their own folder when you export from Blender. But I put them all into this folder that already had the textures, and it made duplicates, 0.001 of each of the duplicates. And the 0.001s are the ones that I got from Blender, so I need to include those with my original model, which is represented by this .dae formatting. So I'm going to select the model, I'm going to hold down Command and grab each of my other files. I'm going to go up to the cogwheel up here in my Finder window, and I'm going to go to Compress 4 items. Compressing 4 items in a Mac, by the way, is zipping files together. So I get an archive zip. I'm going to rename it, so I'm going to select it and hit Return on my keyboard. And I'm just going to rename this one for this Augment test. When you're renaming these, always name them something that you understand or that says something about the models inside the folder, the zip. If you have to upload multiple versions, like you're testing it and something went wrong with the first one, or maybe it was scaled incorrectly or the textures didn't go in correctly and you had to re-edit it inside of Blender. Well, if any of that ever happens, always make sure to rename each of your versions so that you know what you're uploading. Alright, so I have that. I'm going to go into Augment on their webpage and go to Add Model. Click there, and it'll open up a browser, and you want to go and locate where your zip file is. So here's mine. Hit Choose. And it will begin the upload process, which goes usually pretty quickly. You do want to set some things before you're done on this menu. Oh, and one thing to notice, this extra category list doesn't usually appear on your screen if you're a student account. Usually all you see is basic settings. There is a way to make these reappear. I'll show you in just a second. But first, basics, just name your model. I'm going to call it Augment Test. Category should be educational. Privacy settings should be set to public model. That way we can view it and anyone can pull it up. You may notice whenever I uploaded that I had a warning pop up. If you click on that, it'll tell you what is going on or what's a warning, what's giving it a red flag in the system or what's wrong. Now mine says that there's an environmental map. It's because one of my materials is reflective on my object. So it's just letting you know that, hey, you have a reflective material which you may or may not want to be displayed inside of Augment. So just be aware that sometimes those warnings pop up. It may be, sometimes the warnings pop up because you forgot to upload a texture and it'll tell you that it's missing the file and it can't load the texture. You may want to recheck your zip and make sure that there is a texture copy in your file, and an appropriate one. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and hit up here where it says save and publish. And that will publish the model to the website. Now I haven't changed any dimension settings, so it gives me these sort of strange automatic ones right here. I'm going to switch it from millimeters to inches for now and hit confirm unit. We're going to change it afterwards. And it gives you a preview on screen. And then after that, I want to come back and re-edit the features of the object. So there's a little listing here below the model of icons. The pencil is the one that allows you to go back and edit those basic settings. So let's click that. And you should notice now that you have access to these other three categories. So let's go to the one called Dimensions. Under Dimensions, we need to make sure that our model's dimensions are set to that same value, if you recall from the exercise, for the bounding box dimensions of our object. Now I said that mine was set for about 1 foot. And if you recall, 1 foot or 12 inches is the approximate area that you want your object to fit within for proper viewing. So I'm going to leave it at 12 inches. I could put 1 foot if I wanted to, but I'm going to leave it at that. There are other settings you can put in here, by the way. Like you can actually link your model to a web page. So when someone scans your tracker, they can also see a web page below, so you could use that for portfolio purposes. You can also tag your image. And then there are display options set for your scene and your 3D model that you can turn off or on. Now we're not going to mess with any of that. We're going to leave it all alone and say save and publish to update our model accordingly. Alright, so now our model is in the system and registered. If you ever want to test it on your mobile app, remember Augment makes a free mobile app that you can download for an iOS or Android based mobile device, whether it's a tablet or a phone. And you can use the Augment app to scan, use the scan feature, and you can use it to use a scan preview based on this QR code. You just hit the little eyeball for your model and it'll pop up a temporary code. Now this code is not the permanent one we're going to use for our tracker. This is just to preview the model inside the system to see that it uploaded correctly. What we do need in the system that we're missing still is our tracker image, and that is what will be linked to our model in order to bring it up whenever we scan it. So to add our tracker, we're going to go over to the left side of the screen and use this side menu bar, and we're going to click on the option that says My Trackers, and then click on where it says All Trackers. Now you'll get a tracker screen that pops up and you should see a box that says Add Tracker. Go ahead and click there. And what I want you to find inside the system is your Photoshop file that you would have created from when we were working in Photoshop, the quad view image. Now, mine is right here. It says Caleb and it's quad view. And that's the JPEG file that we outputted from Photoshop. That's the one we want right now. So I'm going to upload that. And as before, we have to make sure we name it. Shouldn't have to change the name. The image width, this is important. You want it to be the same as if your document was printed, a physical printed document. So I know that my image document was horizontal and it's an 8.5 by 11, which means that this should be an 11-inch width. So I'm going to just overwrite this number and change my units to inches. Again, if your document that you made in Photoshop was vertical, then the width should be 8.5 inches instead, or 8.5. So make sure you set that correctly for your document. Come down below and it'll ask you to link to something specific. Now, oddly enough, you can link to a website or you can link to a folder of models if you wanted to, or a collection of them for someone to peruse or look through. But I'm just going to go to one that says 3D model. I'm going to choose a 3D model. And this list is big on my screen, but yours may only have one model uploaded. If that's the case, the newest models always upload at the very bottom of the list. So here's mine. And I'm going going to go ahead and hit Save and Publish. Now, the process of publishing a tracker online does take some time for it to register in a system to make it globally available. So if anyone had a copy of your tracker image, they could scan it with the Augment app and pull up your model or imagery that you had linked inside of the Augment system. But again, that does take about 10 minutes for it to register before you can even test it with your mobile app. So in the meantime, you'll have to wait for that part. Now, when it is done officially, you will see a thumbnail pop up. You may have to refresh this screen between now and then. But you will be able to preview on screen before you even print your tracker. And you can just click the eyeball for your tracker icon, wherever it may be, to pop up a preview image of your tracker. And then you can scan that with the Augment app using the scan feature. And it should pop up your model directly in front of it. Now, the convenience for us is that this tracker is placed on the screen, so it simulates the same way we'll look at our tracker on the wall. So when you scan this and your model pops up, you want to check a few things. First, make sure you can see your model immediately. If you cannot, then that's usually a pretty clear indication that your model was not positioned correctly inside of Augment or a Blender. It could also mean that you have stray objects that are throwing off the center of your sculptural area. Because Augment uses the center of the sculptural location to position it. Also make sure that your model was facing forward. So when it pops up in front of your tracker at this point, you should see your model pointed straight at you appropriately. So if it's not, then it means that the orientation was not changed correctly inside of Blender. And you may have to go back into Blender and re-export your model after rotating it to face straight up. So if you remember in Blender, we had our model pointing straight up in the air. And the way we could tell it was aimed straight up was by looking in the top view quad and seeing that my model was facing straight at me, right side up in that viewport. If it's not, then there's a problem. You may need to go and use your other viewports to rotate your model all over again and re-export it, and then re-upload it into the system. But that's what you do as far as getting everything into Augment. Always test your work when it gets to this stage so that you can see that your work is actually uploaded correctly and that everything is working appropriately. Now again, all of these instructions, as with the rest, are all posted on Blackboard with the exercise 4 for output files and formats. So review that and this video. And if you have any more questions, just email me at cduloc.uta.edu. Take care.